Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Spain once again for the first time in what feels like a good little while, but in reality my last Spanish reviews came in January or February of this year, so not that long. But yeah, for this review we are going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good couple of times before. This is going to be my 9th or 10th review involving these guys, if memory serves me correctly, and I've always had some really nice beers from them, and the one that we've got today I think could be a really interesting one. So yeah, fingers crossed it's a good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it as well. So yeah, for this review we are going to head to Navarro in the north of Spain, and we're having a look at another beer from Naparbier. This one is called the Deathwish. It comes in at 9.1% ABV, and they're describing this one as a West Coast Haze double IPA. So potentially a hybrid between a West Coaster and a New England. So that could be very, very interesting. But yeah, my last beer that I reviewed from Naparbier was called Green Blood, and I think that was a New England. I'm pretty sure that was a straight up New England IPA. Could be wrong on that, so correct me in the comments section below if I have got that one wrong. But that was very nice, and I've always enjoyed the beers that I've had from these guys. We do get some really nice Spanish beers up here in Scandinavia, but not nearly enough. I know there's some great stuff down there, and there's more and more breweries opening up all the time, and I wish we got more Spanish beers. But fingers crossed I can get down to Spain at some point and have a visit. I've never been to mainland Spain, and it's somewhere that's been on my list for a good little while. But always nice to review some of their beers, and I hope that you guys watching down in Spain enjoy these Spanish reviews when we can do them as well. But yeah, let's see how we can get on with this one then. The other thing I should add is that this beer was released as part of the Tillfällig sortiment through Systembolaget here in Sweden on the 6th of April 2021. So yeah, you'll still be able to get this one if you're quick. But yeah, let's get cracking with this review then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Naparbier before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future, because I do keep an eye out for these guys. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Spanish beers that are reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. Not as often as I would like, though, I would hasten to add. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Naparbier then. So Naparbier, as I've told you before, are based in Noáin in Navarro in Spain, which is just to the south of Pamplona, but it's not part of the Basque Country. I've made that mistake before on the channel, but the company was founded back in 2009 by 4 entrepreneurs. So this is Juan Rodriguez, Josu Taninye, Chera Alistui, and Jose Javier Rodriguez. Apologies for any bad pronunciations. But basically, the guys found themselves unemployed, and so they decided to move forward with starting their own business, and it went very successfully for them. They started off with a small warehouse of just 150 square meters with a very modest brewing capacity, but later in 2012 they moved into a larger facility where they could produce 500,000 litres of beer per year. In the early days they did a number of collaborations with well-known Scandinavian and European breweries, which really helped them establish their reputation. And you know, these days Naparbier are probably one of the more recognisable Spanish craft beer names across the European continent. You know, if people ask me about Spanish beer, Naparbier are one of the first ones that I would think about. But in 2014 they expanded the brewery again, and they're now joined by 2 more partners. This is Alex, who comes from Madrid, and there's also Sven Bosch, who's from Barcelona, and he's involved with the Beer Cab Bar, which is somewhere that I've read about and would dearly like to check out. But over the last few years they've continued to expand the brewery and increase their exports, and as of April 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 145 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And like I say, they are probably one of the more recognisable Spanish craft beer breweries out there for people in other countries. But the artwork on the cans is designed by Xavi Forna, and it was previously designed by Antonio Bravo, from what I understand. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Naparbier for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get cracking with this beer then. Curious to see how it turns out. So as you can see, the artwork is pretty nice on this one. It's kind of serpent themed, but yeah, when they say Deathwish at 9.1% and they're giving it in a big 440ml can, you can't really help but see the irony there. But certainly really nice. You always get really nice artwork from Naparbier. There you can see the brewery's kind of symbol, or the brewery's kind of caption, if you like, whatever you would say, on the top of the can there. But yeah, this one should be really quite nice. I'm just checking out the ingredients here. It does say, actually, it does say that there's only barley malt in this one. So yeah, I think this could be more of a West Coaster. Maybe it's more natural hazy West Coaster, but yeah, it's just interesting that they call it a West Coast Haze double IPA. But yeah, 440ml can, this one. I think I paid in the region of like 60 Swedish kroners for this, maybe a little bit more, so roughly about €6. That would work out at about £5.25, £5.50, something like that, and I guess in the region of $7 American. So yeah, not bad for a 9.1%er, I have to say. And remember, when you bring these beers up to Sweden, you are going to have to pay the import company a little bit as well. So usually the imported beers are about 10 kroners more than the Swedish ones, than a Swedish equivalent. So yeah, not bad at all, not bad at all. But yeah, let's get cracking with this one and see how we get on. A 9.1% West Coast Haze double IPA. Incidentally, the hops in this one are Citra, Simcoe and Chinook, so could well be a little bit more of an old school beer this, but very excited to try it, so let's go for it. This could be interesting. But yeah, I think that'll do for the pour at the moment to do the aroma and things like that. But I will say straight away, this beer smells very, very nice, and it's got quite a sharp fruity character as you get it out of the can. But yeah, certainly looks very good. It certainly looks more like a New England rather than anything. But you can see, and we've poured maybe about 2/3 of the can into the glass there. You can see it's poured with a finger of a frothy, I would say creamy coloured head. That's not a perfect white in the perfect white head on this one, definitely more creamy, but you can see it is very, very frothy rather than anything else. But if you shine the light through this beer, it's got a lovely, very rich, kind of slightly ambery leaning yellow colour to it. It does definitely look more like a New England rather than anything else. If I stick my fingers behind the glass, you can see the level of haze on this one is very, very nice. But yeah, I'm curious as to how they've got such a level of haze out of this. If you know, it says on the back here that it's just barley malt. It doesn't say anything about oats or wheat. So maybe the haze in this one is either just down to it being unfiltered and you know, maybe partially due to the yeast as well. So interesting idea for sure. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall, it does look very, very nice, certainly. But it really does look more like a kind of New England IPA rather than anything else. But I've got a feeling this one could well just be a West Coast unfiltered, actually. But yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma and see how we get on with this one then. But yeah, not overly surprising in terms of the appearance when you consider the description of the beer that they give. But yeah, lovely, lovely looking beer, lovely kind of rich, almost slightly mixed tropical fruit juice colour, this one. But yeah, let's take a look at that aroma and see how we get on with this one then. That smells really really different compared to other beers I've had from Naparbier before, but the aroma is beautiful in this one. The thing that strikes you about this right away, it's got a real kind of freshness about it. It's got a real kind of, the fruits are just so kind of in your face, and it's almost to the point where it comes across, it's a little bit like that kind of minty freshness that you get out of this, except it's kind of hoppy and resiny. You're really getting some of the old school Chinook stuff out of this one. So yeah, with the hops that are in this one, I mean, Citra, we know 14, all of these hops are American, 14% alpha acid with Citra. Mangoes, good little bit of tropical fruit complexity. Simcoe, I think, is about 12% alpha acid. That's more of a passion fruity leaning hop. And Chinook is grapefruit, and it's a big beast of a piney hop as well. But you're getting a lot of pine resin out of this beer, almost to the point where, like I say, it comes across with an almost minty level of freshness to it on the nose. It's quite interesting. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is very, very nice. Let's just go through it in the normal order that we would do, and see how we go. But yeah, on the malty side of things with this beer, it does come across as being quite bready. You get a nice soft white bready character to it. You can definitely smell some of that sort of yeasty airiness to the beer as well. But I do get wee elements of kind of biscuity qualities to this one. There's definitely a wee bit of a, you do get a little bit of a, there is a wee bit of a kind of brown sugary element into it, and it comes across as a little bit like a butter candy, you know, a butterscotch type thing out of this one. Werther's Original, I don't know if that's a good reference for Spanish viewers, right enough. I don't know if you get Werther's Original sweets down in Spain. They've probably got their own things, right enough. But you know, the malty side of this beer is quite interesting. You definitely get a little bit of that sort of brown sugary sweetness that you expect of a West Coast IPA. For me, there's sort of two directions you can take a West Coast IPA in. You can either lean towards the more kind of bready and biscuity side of things, such as you would get with Pliny the Elder, or you can have a more oily and bigger caramelly nose, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo. This one is a little bit more on that kind of bready and biscuity side of things. But yeah, I do get, the more that I smell of it, I get a little bit of a sweet caramel. I get a little bit of biscuitiness. You know, it's got everything that I could really ask for within in that regard, actually. So I really like how that that side of the beer goes about its business, actually. So yeah, the malty side of the things, as I say, nice kind of bready base to it. A little bit of you know, you get some of those airy kind of yeasty notes coming out of it, a little bit of a sweet caramel, a sort of Werther's Original butter candy type thing, and then a wee bit of a kind of biscuity McVitie's digestive element too. But yeah, it works. It really works very, very nicely. So yeah, the malty and I guess yeasty side of this beer goes together very, very nicely. It actually reminds me of the Buxton Kingslayer that I reviewed over Christmas time. It's kind of got that sort of similar vibe to it, come to think of it. But yeah, that covers the malty yeasty side of the beer quite well, I would think. Let's focus on the hoppy part of the beer. So the green component, yeah, this is where it gets a lot of its freshness and zestiness and things like that from. So for me, there's a little bit of earthiness in the beer, but not a lot. You get a lot of pine resin out of this one though from the Chinook, and I'm guessing that what I would guess there might well be another bittering hop in there. Quite often a lot of breweries don't list their bittering hops, they only list the kind of later addition hops. And remember, when it comes to hops, it's all about when during the wort boil that you add them. If you add them earlier on, that's when you get most of the bitterness. But if you add, you know, progressively as you go through the wort boil, you've got a trade-off between bitterness in favour of flavour and aroma. So I suspect that the majority of hops in this beer are being added later on, I would think. So yeah, it comes across like that. It comes across like that, and an IPA like this is going to have somewhere between a 70 and 90 minute boil, of course. But yeah, you get a good little bit of bitterness out of it, and you get you know, you get how do you say, you just get a nice kind of strong piney resinous base to the beer, which I really like. There is a bit of a floral aromaticity in there, a little bit of a lighter kind of there's a little bit of a kind of lighter grassiness to it as well, but you've got a good wee bit of a zesty kind of quality also. So I really like how all of these things sort of things go together, come to think of it. So yeah, the green component of this beer is quite nice. It's got a nice good bit of zestiness to it, a big sort of floral character, but there's a nice sort of deep, almost fresh, refreshing, could we say, or what's the word I'm looking for? It's just got that deep kind of piney resinous note to it, where it almost has that kind of, it almost feels a little bit like a kind of, like a bit of an almost minty freshness, come to think of it. So yeah, I like how that that side of things goes together. But yeah, on the fruity side of the beer, the fruity side of the beer is kind of what you would expect when you know these hops. There is a wee bit of a stronger grapefruity note in there from the Chinook, of course, but it is quite dominated by the Citra and the Simcoe. So you can definitely smell a bit of the slightly stronger passion fruit in there from the Citra. But you also get the lighter kind of passion fruit that you would normally get from Simcoe. That both of those are playing quite a big role in the beer. You get a bit of lighter mango, but then you start to get a nice little bit of a more kind of citrusy element out of this one, which is good as well. I think Citra's the one that's going to give you more of the kind of citrusy notes. If I was smelling this beer blind, I would actually think there was a bit of Centennial in this one, because I do get quite a little bit of a lemony character out of this one, come to think of it as well. But most of the fruits are tropical. There's a bit of passion fruit in the back, there's a lovely juicy mango to it, and I think the mango is quite prominent. And then for me, you get a little bit of a lemon limey sort of note to it as well. So yeah, the aroma of this beer is really quite interesting. So yeah, I think it's about time we have a taste of this one then, but definitely take a bit of time and ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But let's go for it. This one is the Deathwish, a 9.1% double IPA, or as they've put it, a West Coast Haze double IPA from Naparbier in Noáin in Navarro in the north of Spain. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, Skål, Salud. Cheers. That's pretty nice. That is pretty damn nice, actually. I think it is what I suspected it was when I saw it. It's like an unfiltered West Coast IPA. Yeah, it's actually it's in fairly decent condition as well. You can feel that it's not at its optimum freshness, but when it's come up from Spain, you know, the other thing is Systembolaget are probably going to have had this sitting for a few weeks, and that's one area where Systembolaget need to improve. We need to be getting beers like this out on the shelves a little bit faster. So I think, you know, if they're going to allow, they need to be a little bit more kind of flexible in their release dates, if you like, you know, especially with the IPAs. With the dark beers, it doesn't matter as much, but with things like this, you know, maybe this should have been released like a week earlier or something like that, or 2 weeks earlier, depending on how long they've had it. But yeah, they need to, that's something they need to do, is be a bit more flexible with the IPAs, get the IPAs out there as quick as they can. But yeah, this one is really nice. The other thing we need to consider with what I've just said is it's the import companies have to get them in good time as well, actually. But yeah, that's another thing. Let me just check for my OCD that this is in good placing, and there we go. But yeah, it's another solid beer, this from Naparbier. Absolutely, gets a big thumbs up from me. But yeah, it's got a lovely drinkability to it. It's a bit too easy to drink for a 9.1%er, but it is what it is. But yeah, I'm just going to say thumbs up to this one. It is, as I say, like it's definitely a West Coaster, but it's like an unfiltered West Coaster for sure. It's got a lovely smoothness to it, and a wee bit of slickness as well, but we'll come to the mouthfeel towards the end of the review. But anyway, let's focus on the flavour then. So straight away across the middle of your palate, you get that nice, smooth, white bready sort of thing there. That just blankets the middle of your tongue, and you can feel that as you go further into the aftertaste, it does develop a slight graininess and a slightly kind of bread crusty quality the further you go into the aftertaste, which is great. So yeah, I really like how this one goes together. It definitely builds in the sweetness and things the further that you go into it, but it's not overly sweet, if that makes sense. So yeah, So as I say, soft white bready quality, just going right across the middle of your palate. They're a little bit grainier the further you go into the aftertaste, and you get a wee bit of sweetness just coming out of this one the further you go into the aftertaste as well. So on top of that, it's quite a straight shooting malt base actually in a lot of ways. If you go to the front corners of your palate and then move diagonally backwards, you might get one or two little woody undertones to the beer, but this is mainly bready base, and then some of the more kind of soft yeasty elements kind of sitting on top of that. But in the very centre of your palate, you do get a little bit of a sweet caramel out of this one. These are some of the alcohol flavours coming out. As you move further out from that, it's a little bit more of a kind of butterscotchy kind of the butterscotch is quite minimal, I would say. It's like a Werther's Original. You do get a little bit of this kind of around the caramel too, but then as you move further out towards the edge of the palate, you've got a good little bit of a kind of biscuity, I would say. You do have a little bit of a sort of biscuity McVitie's digestive sort of thing to it. So yeah, I like how that goes together, absolutely. Typical of one of the types of West Coasters that we mentioned earlier. Like I say, this one, it really leans towards that more kind of bready, biscuity part of the spectrum, which I really like. But yeah, I think that covers the middle third of the palate quite well, to be honest with you. It's very straight shooting, but it's just one of these beers that's really well crafted, I would say. And to be honest, that's what I've found with Naparbier over the years, definitely. But yeah, on that border region then between middle and back third of your palate, you can feel that some of the kind of doughy, yeasty elements sort of build up a little bit. You do get a little bit of that coming out of this beer for sure. So a wee bit more of a kind of grainy bread crusty thing, and then on the back third of your palate, again, you can feel the beer has a little bit more of a kind of bitiness to it, a little bit of a kind of, it almost feels like it's a little bit more grainy on that back third of your palate, but on top of that, there's a little bit more of a kind of airy, yeasty sort of thing. So yeah, I really like how that goes together. But yeah, the airy kind of, the yeasty notes, you can feel that on that back third of your palate. The flavour just feels a little bit taller, so you can feel the yeasty notes just kind of, those airy yeasty notes sitting on top of that back third of your tongue. And as you move further forward, if you start at the back of the tongue, the flavour's like this, and it just condenses down a little bit and then drops. It just kind of condenses down a lot as you reach that border region, and then as you go through the middle of the palate, the flavour is a lot more kind of condensed together. But like I say, the yeastiness goes down like that, and then the brown sugary notes and biscuity notes and stuff sit on top of it as you go into the middle third of your palate. But yeah, this one is really nice. I do suspect that this is an unfiltered West Coaster for sure. I think that's how they've done it with this one. But yeah, malty side of things is very, very nicely done, as we've come to expect from this brewery over the years. But on the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate, there's a good little bit of earthiness in there. I'm getting a good little bit of that out of the beer. But yeah, as you move further forward, it very quickly, the earthiness kind of does fade away a little bit, and as you move further forward, it gets a more kind of, you can feel that deep pine resinous quality of the Chinook in this one. I'm pretty sure Chinook has been used as the bittering hop in this beer, but it works out just so nicely. I think Chinook is an awesome bittering hop, and you can really feel that deep pine resinous quality in this one. A lot of the beers I've been having recently have tasted a little bit more like Columbus, a bit more floral and spicy. So it's been a wee while since I've had a big deep kind of Chinook piney resinous in a beer, and I've missed that. I have to say that's one thing that I do miss about the old about the old days of the West Coast IPAs. But yeah, so you get that nice big piney resinous note. It does get a little bit more floral as you reach the front corners of the palate, and then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy. So yeah, it's definitely got a little bit of a more kind of grassy zestiness around the front edge of the tongue, which is nice, and you do get a wee bit of floral quality underneath this too. You can taste a little bit of the kind of green dusty thing from the dry hopping as well in this beer too. You do get a little bit of that, particularly from the front corners of the palate round the front edge of the tongue, but that's nice. Yeah, I think that covers the green component quite well, quite piney and resinous and a little bit sort of dusty from the dry hopping. definitely. But yeah, on that front third of your palate then, as I always say, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So that border region between front third and middle third of your tongue, again, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up and a bit of a bread crusty element. But then on the base of that front third of your palate is definitely more a sort of yeah, the base of that front third of your palate is definitely more kind of just bready rather than anything else. It is just like a sort of kind of white bready element you get out of that, which is interesting. But you can, the more that I drink of this beer, you can feel a little bit of booziness coming out of this one. So yeah, beware of that. But yeah, onto the fruity side of things then. At the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a little bit of a more concentrated kind of passion fruity element coming out of the beer. Which is good. So yeah, quite a concentrated passion fruity element there, and as you move further forward from that, you get a little bit more of a kind of, the passion fruit actually spreads quite far forward in this one towards the kind of midpoint of that front third of your tongue. So yeah, quite a concentrated midpoint kind of passion fruity element there. Then you start to get a more oily mango out of it, but remember both Citra and Simcoe are going to give you passion fruit in this beer. Then you start to get a little bit more of an oily mango, which spreads quite far forward, and then as you reach the kind of front part of that front third of your tongue, you're getting a more kind of lemony, slightly limey quality, and then you've got all the kind of grassy zestiness sitting in front of that. So I think the flavour hops you get in this are definitely more the Citra and the Simcoe, and I think Chinook has been used as the bittering hop, but it works very, very well actually, so it gets a big thumbs up from me, I would say. So yeah, I certainly like how this beer goes about its business for sure. Definitely, it's a solid old school West Coast IPA. This definitely, it's and I say the hazy kind of side of things, I suspect comes from not being filtered, from unfiltered. Although if I'm wrong on that, which is a possibility, I would be very curious to know how they did it. But yeah, anyway, let's round off the review with the mouthfeel then. So this is definitely kind of bottom end of full-bodied beer for me. Very smooth carbonation. It's got a bit of oiliness and a bit of slickness to it, which is what you're going to get when you're sitting at 9.1%. You do get a wee bit of alcohol warmth out of this beer. Down here, I can feel it starting to come into play now, but yeah, I think it works out. It does work out very, very nicely. Big, just boozy 9% West Coast IPA. But yeah, on the malty side of things, like I say, it's very, very smooth. It develops a little bit of sweetness and graininess, I think, the further you go into the aftertaste. It does feel a little bit more boozy and caramelly, actually, but there's a good bit of hoppy bitterness to it. This beer is a higher IBU beer, about 80 IBUs, if not the full 100. But remember, we're not getting this one at its prime freshness, so maybe a little bit of that would have dropped away, but this is a high IBU beer. Remember though, this is my weakest point of beer reviewing, is the IBU count. Quite often get that wrong. But then the fruity side of this beer, there is still a wee bit of juiciness, as you might expect from the sort of New England beers, because of what I suspect is unfiltering. But you've got that nice oily fruity character that you always expect of a West Coaster as well. But overall, this is another very, very solid beer from Naparbier. And you know, I wouldn't expect anything less of these guys. They've done some great stuff over the years, and I've always enjoyed the beers that I've had from them. So yeah, this has been another nice review, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this beer, and I think we can leave it there. So yeah, this one was the Deathwish, a 9.1% West Coast double IPA. Really interesting to kind of break down and think about, but in a lot of ways very old school actually. Definitely one of the more bready living West Coasters that we've had over the last little while. But yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Naparbier. Do let me know some other Spanish breweries that I should try and see about as well. I'd love to get a few more Spanish reviews done. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next review, and do make sure you check out some of the Naparbiers. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and I'll see you later. Salud.